Oh, okay. Actually, that worked out because that gave me a chance to build up a higher platform. So now I'm pretty close to the top there. So I think I can slide this off. By myself is going to be a bit of a trick, but we'll give it a shot. Well, I'm inches away from committing to having this thing no longer be supported at all by the saddle here on top of the knee of this mill. And I've decided not to go any further until I've got some overhead support. I think I'm going to get the loader over here and see if I can't get some chains and straps on it, because I don't like how my cobbled up stand here is working out. It seems to be listing a little bit to one side, and I can't tell at this point whether or not when I release this from its dovetails if it's going to want to start falling over, because if it starts falling towards the back, there's a danger of me getting trapped behind there and crushed. If it starts falling towards the front, there's a danger of it, well, if it gets enough momentum, it could actually knock this wall right out of the front here. So I don't like that. In the meantime, you can actually see the inner workings of how this table feed works, which is kind of neat. This is the feed direction lever for the table, so it's in neutral right now. So that has this this dog right here. It's like a clutch dog, and it moves that gear either this way or that way. So what happens is the gear underneath it's always rotating in one direction, and that causes this bevel gear to rotate that way and this one to rotate this way, or vice versa. So if you flip the lever this way, you'll see it's going to engage this gear and turn in that direction, this way, that direction. So that's kind of neat. And then this is the device right here. It's like a half nut, and that must have been what was keeping me from being able to remove the rod out from this side before. Well, my problem is the loader is too wide for the doorway, so I can't get any closer safely than that, really, without a ground guide especially. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can rig something up, maybe from that hook on the loader over to maybe something on the mill itself as the other anchor point, and sling it underneath there. Well, I needed to get closer than I was, so I edged a little closer, and I want to tell you, can't get much closer than that. Well, I wish I could get a sling on this end, but I've got nothing to really anchor it to, unless I put some lag screw hooks in the walls here or something, but I'd just as soon not do that. So I've got a strap under here, and hopefully that'll keep this from wanting to flip off of this thing if it tries to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a pry bar in there. I'm going to gently edge this off of the dovetail. Alright, well, it's off. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to put some boards across here and lift it, slide it back up on top of the saddle, but have a board underneath it. Now with a piece of plywood underneath there, I can slide this back up onto the saddle and kind of center it in preparation for attempting to pick it up with the loader. Now with the board under there, I was able to slide it back up onto the saddle, and now lifting this end, swivel it over 90 degrees and put that end on the loader. Now I should be able to slide it into the mouth of the loader bucket far enough so that it won't slip off as I guide the other end in. Remember before when I sounded skeptical when I said there are estimates of 250 pounds? Well, I believe it now. Maybe 300 pounds. That is heavy. Problem is I couldn't get the loader in any closer, so I was spanning an area that I couldn't get more than half of the table onto the loader before it was coming off the edge of the saddle, so I just had to pick it up and spin it around. So basically I had to lift up one end of this, and they say 2 strong guys can take this off. Well, I believe it, but lifting it up from waist high and then bending down to actually put it on something, forget it. you definitely want some kind of a table or a cart, something really sturdy and strong that you could lower this thing, you know, onto, so you didn't have to lift it very high to get it back on when you're putting it back on your machine if you're doing a repair. Now, as far as removing the saddle, this part right here, I believe it's called the saddle. I have no idea, but I found the jib screw in the back and the front, so that seemed like a logical place to start. So I took out the jib screws, and this jib, I'm assuming this is called a jib because those things I think are jib screws, came out. So I think that actually allows this to be actually lifted right up off of the knee now. I'm not sure if it just sits on top of the drive there and it's coupled to it some way or what, but I'll try and lift up on it and see what happens. Alright, if I run the crank all the way, if I run the saddle all the way out this way, it stops flush with this and won't go any further. And if I run it back in that way, and when it's out all the way, by the way, I can look down in there, but I don't see anything I can disconnect. When I run it all the way in this way, there's a second plate right here that must be designed to just keep chips and stuff from falling down in there, maybe, I don't know. But that plate kind of follows along, but I was able to slide it out of the way by pushing on it with a screwdriver as I rotated the saddle, and it doesn't move out of the way enough to open that up and see down inside here. So I'm thinking maybe I could raise the knee all the way up to get a look underneath, see what's underneath there. There's also this screw right here. I mean, I don't suppose it could be something as simple and silly as just taking this one screw out. Could it? Yeah, that little tiny screw, I just took it out. That screw I just took out, and the hole behind it's tiny, so I think it's just another oil hole to oil the surface maybe. Now the way this mill is supposed to work is you're supposed to have a big motor drive that huge pulley on the back. That huge pulley will drive the spindle through this transmission. I believe this is the transmission for the spindle speed. And you've got this clutch right here that actuates in the back there. And then through some sort of mechanism, power is then also transferred down to this lower gear case, which is your feed rates for the table. The knee up and down, the saddle back and forth, and the table left and right. And what's wrong with this mill, one of the things that's wrong with this mill, and the previous owner, one of the reasons he got this mill, he got it really cheap, and he knew it had a problem with the transmission, so that for some reason there's a problem between here and there. So what he did was he concocted this whole thing. There was originally a door on the side here which is missing, and what he did was he took the door off. He cobbled together a piece of angle iron in the back here, and this is looks like a 2x4, and he mounted an outboard 120 volt motor, coupled it to a chain reduction drive, and he's got this chain drive running to a sprocket right there, and it looks, I mean, that all looks absolutely original in there. So I'm assuming that originally there was a chain, this chain went up inside there and engaged a sprocket inside there that we can't see, and that there's something wrong up in there, and that's why he did this. So what I think this means is that I don't even know if those feed change rate levers even worked. I'd love to know, and actually, since I want to raise this thing up, I could do it by hand, but just for fun, since he's got a 120 volt motor just wired on there separately, I don't have to worry about the fact that my 220 is disconnected. I can actually run this thing.